All right. Now, to further understand this study, it's very important that we revisit Esau and Jacob as we did in our first documentary, Esau and the Horites. I think it's important that we revisit Esau in order to be able to fully understand what is being presented in this documentary. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and jump over here to the scriptures. We're going to start off in Barashith, or Genesis 25, 24 through 27. And it reads thus: And the days were fulfilled that she should be delivered, Rebekah. And she had twins in her womb. And the first came out red, hairy all over like a skin. And she called his name Ashu, or Esau. And after this came forth his brother, and his hand took hold of the heel of Ashu, or Esau, and she called his name Yaakub, or Jacob. And Yatshak, or Isaac, was 60 years old when Rebekah bore them. And the boys grew, and Ashu was a man skilled in hunting, dwelling in the country, and Jacob was a simple man, dwelling in a house. Now, there are some things that the scriptures reveal about some of Esau's characteristics, such as him being a person that liked to be outside and dwelling outside and hunting and things of that nature. As we continue to go through this documentary, it's very important you pay attention to these characteristics that describe Ashu, or Esau, so it'll make more sense. Next, we're going to read Barashith, Genesis 27:11, and verses 15 through 22. And Jacob said to his mother, Rebekah, Ashu, my brother, is a hairy man, and I a smooth man. Now, what is being presented here is that Isaac went blind, and he was supposed to give the blessing to Ashu, or Esau. Now, we know that Ashu sold his birthright to his brother Jacob for a bowl of soup. And so Rebekah is telling Jacob, I need you to go in there and get that blessing. But he's all like, Jacob's like, how can I do this? My brother's extremely hairy. And this is the only description you really get about Jacob, considering the fact that he looked like everybody that was around him at the time, which were dark-skinned Hebrews. This is why there's so much more detail about how Esau looks and not Jacob. The only thing they tell you is he was smooth, so he was not hairy. So he's asking his mother, how am I going to pull this off? And this man is extremely hairy. Verse 15, and Rebekah, having taken the fine raiment of her elder son, Ashu, or Esau, which was put with her in the house, put it on Jacob, her younger son, and she put on his arms the skins of the kids, or the goats, and on the bare parts of his neck. 17, and she gave the meats and the loaves which she had prepared into the hands of Jacob her son. So Esau was so hairy. And pay attention to the animal that was used in order for him to pass as Esau, or Ashu. It was a goat. Okay? Goats have shaggy hair texture, shaggy fur. This is not like a lamb that we're talking about here, which obviously is how Yahusha, his hair is compared, and how the Yasharim, or the Israelites, would look. They obviously had hair like wool. That is not the same hair texture as you would think of when you think of a goat, when you think of a certain group of people, which we'll look at in a second. You'll understand what the hair texture of Esau. The hair on Ashu's body was shaggy, okay? And that's going to make some more sense as we keep reading. So she put the skins of the goats and on the bare parts of his neck and his arms. 17, and she gave the meats and the loaves which she had prepared into the hand of Jacob her son, and he brought them to his father and said, Father. And he said, Behold, I am here. Who are you, son? And Jacob said to his father, I, Ashu, your firstborn, have done as you have told me. Rise, sit, and eat of my venison, that your soul may bless me. And Isaac said to his son, What is this which you have quickly found? And he said, That which Yahuwah presented before me. And Isaac said to Jacob, Draw nigh unto me, and I will fill you. Son, if you are my son, Ashu, or not. And Jacob drew nigh to his father Isaac, and he felt him and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Ashu or Esau." 23. And he knew him not, for his hands were as the hands of his brother Ashu, hairy, and he blessed him. So even at birth, Esau or Ashu was extremely hairy, well on into his boyhood and his manhood as well. He was a shaggy, hairy Hebrew. Okay? Now, again, as I explained in the first documentary Esau and the Horites, he was not white, but he did have shaggy, hairy body. His arms were covered in this shaggy hair. His body was covered in this shaggy hair. So he was definitely different than the rest of those who came before him and after him, because you will not find really many instances of scripture where someone is described as the way Ashu is as far as a hairy body. Okay? But we can see that when the goat fur was put on Jacob, he was able to pass as Ashu, even though Isaac recognized it was Jacob's voice and not Esau's voice. But all he needed to do was feel that shaggy hair on Jacob's body from the goat, and he believed it was Esau, and he blessed him. Now we're going to continue on, and we're going to read more about Esau, okay? So we're going to jump over here to Bereshith, Genesis 36, 6 through 9. And Ashu took his wives and his sons and his daughters and all the persons of his house, and let all his possessions and all his cattle and all that he had got and all things whatsoever he had acquired in the land of Canaan. That's where Jacob and the rest of his family lived. And Ashu went forth from the land of Canaan from the face of his brother Jacob, for their substance was too great for them to dwell together, and the land of their sojourning could not bear them because of the abundance of their possessions. And Ashu, or Esau, dwelt in Mount Seir. Ashu, he is Adum, or Edom. Okay? Now, we're focusing on Seir here because there are some very interesting things that I've pointed out in the first documentary, but I'm going to prove in this documentary as well, because they all connect, believe it or not. Verse 9, and these are the generations of Ashu, the father of Adum, or Edom, in the Mount Seir. All right? The next place we're going to look is also in the Torah. This is Devarim, or Deuteronomy 2, 4 through 5, and verse 8. And charge the people, saying, you are going through the borders of your brethren, the children of Ashu, who dwell in Seir, and they shall fear you and dread you greatly. Do not engage in war against them, for I will not give you of their land, even enough to set your foot upon. For I have given Mount Seir to the children of Ashu or Esau as an inheritance. So as the children of Yasharal were passing through the wilderness on the way to the promised land, they passed by Mount Seir. And Yahuwah was telling and commanding his children not to make war with them, not to come against that land or set foot up on it. So they had to pass around Mount Seir to get to the promised land, because he had given Mount Seir to Esau for an inheritance. Verse 8, and we passed by our brethren, the children of Ashu, who dwelt in Seir by the way of Arabah, from Elan, and from Gishan, Gabar, and we turned and passed by the way of the desert of Moab. Continuing on, we're going to read a little bit more about Seir. Bereshith, Genesis 36, 20 through 21. And these are the sons of Ashu, Seir the Horite, who inhabited the land, Lotan, Sobal, Sabagan, Anna, and Dasan, and Asar, and Resan. These are the chiefs of the Horite, the son of Seir, in the land of Edom, or Adum. Bereshith, Genesis 14:6. And the Horites in the mountains of Seir, to the turpentine tree of Paran, which is in the desert. Well, very interesting. The desert is mentioned again. The wilderness. Let's keep reading. Now we're going to jump over here to the book of Jasher, because it gives us a little bit more context about Seir. Yashar, or Jasher 30, 28 through 29. And when Ashu saw that his quarreling increased with the inhabitants of the land of Canaan, he rose up and took his wives and his sons and his daughters, and all belonging to him, and the cattle which he possessed, and all his property that he acquired in the land of Canaan, and he went away from the inhabitants of the land to the land of Seir. And Ashu and all belonging to him dwelt in the land of Seir. But from time to time, Ashu would go and see his father and mother in the land of Canaan, and Ashu intermarried with the Horites, and he gave his daughters to the sons of Seir, the Horites. Okay? So we can see here that Esau, or Ashu, left Canaan, where his family was, and he ended up going into Seir, which is where these Horites were. Now, as I mentioned before, Esau had the hair texture, at least on his body, as that of a goat, in order for Jacob to pass as Esau. So here are just a few examples of the texture of goat fur or goat hair. Now compare this to a sheep. Do you see that there is a significant difference in the way in which Esau looked and the way in which Jacob looked?